Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide you context in the war in Ukraine. As I'm speaking, it is Sunday, December 1st, 2024, and this is the daily brief. So there are 1,730 Russians off the battlefield day over day today. There are 5 tanks, 14 armored fighting vehicles, 14 artillery systems, 76 vehicles, and fuel tanks. Now that 1730 figure, that's what's interesting here. So that is, if we look at this is my calculations of what's been going on the battlefield. That's the 5th highest of the war. Okay, it keeps getting displaced a little bit further and a little bit further. 5th highest daily average, and is also higher than the average for the month of November, which has just come out. So here is, let me show you this. This is November. Russian personnel losses exceed 45,000 troops. On average, they lost 1,524 soldiers every day, or more than one combatant every minute. Now that's killed or wounded enough that they have to be taken off the battlefield. One combatant per minute. Now my calculations are a little different than this. They say 45, 720. That's not my math, but they're also privy to something that maybe I'm not privy to, so that's understandable. So here is my calculations of the casualties, and this comes from each daily report that shows up. That's how I calculated this. I went through, double checked my math, and so what I see is that there's 45,450 Russians off the battlefield. Now, they say 45,720. They're certainly privy to information that I'm not, I don't have access to. So the difference is about 270. And so, okay, but I mean, we're very, very close. But what does that mean? Okay, so the average for the month was 1515, like every day 1515, and then the average of the highest of the previous month was 1354. Okay, and the average of the highest of the previous month before that, which was September, so the previous month high was October, the previous month high before that was September, which tells you what the fall has been like. It's been horrific. Now, 1515, and the average for October, it's 20% higher than the previous high, and it's 6% higher than the previous high from September to October, or a total of 20%, just about 20%, 19% higher since September. There have been 22 days that they exceeded the average of the previous high month. So October was the previous high month, and all these in red are days that they exceeded that month's previous average. And it's pretty significant. Now, there's a little bit more to the story too. Um, so if you look at how many casualties, there's been 34 months of the war. That was at 6% of the total casualties of 30 months of war, 34 months of war, and that's way higher than what it should be. The average per month, if you just break it down by 34 months, would be 21,820, and we actually saw last month 45,450. So it just tells you about, like, it's more than double of what it would have otherwise should have been. Like, the casualty rates are just crazy. Okay, I hope that didn't bore you. I hope that was actually helpful to you instead. But that's how I'm calculating as we're going through. Here are Andrew Perpetua's losses. They were about 1-to-1 yesterday, and there wasn't as many as you've seen otherwise. And so that would tell me that there's more meat wave assaults than there are, tanks moving forward and other vehicles and that sort of thing. Okay, yesterday 32 were shot down of the 78 Shahed drones, and 45 were suppressed by electronic warfare. When you only see the number 32, that's because they only calculate those that were actually shot down, not those that were electronically suppressed. Ukraine repels Russian drone assault. None of the 78 drones reached their targets, and that's good news for Ukrainians. Russians launched over 500 guided bombs, nearly 660 attack drones, and 120 missiles of various types against Ukraine this week, according to Zelensky. No country in the world has faced such daily attacks for so long, he added. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty brutal, and what's going on the ground is pretty brutal as well. Okay, in other news, a large plastics factory is on fire in Russia's Ekaterinburg region. Just because it's a plastics factory, I'm going to say it's probably likely that it had something to do with the war. Russians continue to entertain themselves with random acts of mass murder in Ukraine's Kherson. Remember the human safari this morning, sending a small drone into a crowded bus full of elderly people, killing 3, injuring 6. I mean, and the world yawns. I mean, it's just crazy. This young Crimean is sentenced to 16 years for circulating a video on resistance to Russian occupation. Okay, I get shouldn't have done that within an occupied area. 16 years, though, seems a little excessive. Like maybe you're worried about something. Okay, front lines. Ukraine's forces recently regained lost positions north of Kharkiv, and Russian forces recently advanced near Pokrovsk, Kharkiv, and Vuhledar. It's bad on the front line. It just is bad on the front line. There's no sugarcoating what's going on there. According to TASS, the Russian army has liberated 88 settlements in the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic, Zaporizhia, Kursk, and Kharkiv regions in 2024 in the fall. So the fall has been pretty brutal for Ukraine on the front lines, and that's how they're framing this in TASS. Now, what's happening next? In Donetsk Oblast, Russian forces have made rapid advances toward the eastern flank of Velika Noviska. The town has been situated on the front line since 2022 and has acted as a linchpin of Ukraine's defensive line. Ukraine regained some territory south of the town as part of its 2023 counteroffensive. Velika Noviska is now vulnerable to Russian attacks due to loss of Vuhledar, 30 kilometers to the east, in early October 2024. This enabled increased Russian advances into less well-defended areas in western Donetsk Oblast. Russian forces are attacking behind established Ukrainian defenses, that's not good, and threatening the primary logistics routes to the town. So that's where they're going right now, and it's bad on the front line. It's not looking good at all. Now, Russia is also preparing for a major offensive into the Zaporizhia region, according to the colonel who's commanding the NGU's 3rd Spartan Brigade. So it's again looking rough, but it's also rough on the other side. Seemingly, some of the captured Russians should be back home, retired, enjoying the grandkids, till you find out that they're only 43. These guys are only 43? Like, wow. How about that? And Russia's not stopping. Russia just released its 2025 government budget, which indicates that they are undoubtedly ramping up to global war. Military portion raised to record 32.5% of the budget, amounting to 13.5 trillion rubles or 145 billion US dollars, an increase of almost 30% from 2024. So they have no intention of quitting. So if you think, yeah, let's just make a peace deal, they'll quit. They're not planning on quitting. Meanwhile, the Czechs are returning to Russian gas because of the price. While the Czechs, Germans, Austrians, French, and British are dying under Russian, Chinese, North Korean, and Iranian missiles, drones, and men and women are in the trenches all over Europe, they'll remember the leaders that saved 0.5% of GDP doing deals with Russia. Just why? This is like the worst possible timing, but okay. Now, there was a change of the guard in the EU, and the High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Kaja Kallas, arrived in Kyiv, along with the Enlargement Commissioner, Marta Kos. During her first visit since taking office, Kaja stated that her message is clear. The European Union wants Ukraine to win this war. The European Council President, Charles Michel, also officially handed over his duties to former Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa. So they're in Kyiv right now. Dmitry Medyev's not happy about that. Costa, the new European Council head, and the Russophobic top EU diplomat, Caius, turned up in Kyiv on his first day. It showed the priority is prolonging the war, not ensuring the well-being of the EU. Happy now, Europeans? Well, I mean, it's actually a far better plan than not prolonging the war and letting Russia have its way and letting Russia rest and rearm for the next war. Anton Gurashenko says this, and this is for all of us. Even if you feel like you don't influence anything, like you can't do or change anything, remember the importance of conversation and empathy, especially in the darkest times. The very fact of caring, curiosity, and conversation is support. It's visibility. It's affirmation of existence. It's what also counteracts genocide and darkness. We are all connected and everything matters, both small and large deeds. He's right. Like a lot of us feel just like we're just not doing enough. We like, how do we help more? And it's very frustrating. And then finally, my friends, a Ukrainian soldier breaks down after asking a little boy where his parents are, and his response was, "They're dead." It's heartbreaking to think this little guy. And then he spots a picture of his dad who served on the front lines, but sadly his life was cut short. So he's getting to see him on this Avenue of the Heroes. That's all that I have, my friends. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the shares and the subscribes. But more than anything, thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.